Akaviyah ben Mahalalel is trying to say, don't forget where your background. I once saw this movie about this private in the army who hated the way his sergeant treated him. He hated it. The whole movie was about he couldn't stand the way he was so. And by the end of the movie, he becomes the sergeant, and he does all the things to the private that he didn't want the sergeant to all the privates under him. All the new recruits, he did exactly the same thing. Maybe a person is supposed to remember where they come from in all areas of life. One of the great rabbis here in Eretz Yisrael, his name is Rabbi Ryan. Hashem should bless him and his family. He's a very close teacher of mine. Rav Ryan always says, when he started teaching, he wanted to become the teacher. When he became a Rebbe, he said, I wanted to be the Rebbe that I never had. I want to be the teacher that I never had, and not to make the same mistakes that some other teachers that I was sitting in their classes made. So maybe me'ayin bata. Maybe it's a great instruction for life. Me'ayin bata. Me'ayin bata. Ula'an ata holech. So where are you going? Where are you headed? You will not remain. You will not remain all powerful. It's a temporary stay in this world, and very often, if you realize that it's temporary, then many things which seem so important, so outrageous, so demanding of an immediate harsh, Yemei shenotenu b'hem 70 shana, v'migvurot 80 shana. This is not going to remain forever. And sometimes you gain a perspective on life when you start thinking about la'an ata holech, where are you going? Sometimes when a person, God forbid there should never be any future funerals, and God should remove death from the world. But in the past, when people used to leave this world and die, sometimes a person comes back from a funeral and they have a certain check on reality. They realize, oh, this person was just running around, and where are they now? La'an ata holech. And the third reflection, he says, is lifnei mi ata atid litain din v'heshbon, and take into consideration, try to remember and try to think about the fact that you're going to have to be standing in front of God. You'll be required to account for your life and for your activities. Lifnei mi ata atid litain din v'cheshbon. Before whom are you destined to give future account and reckoning? Lifnei melech malchei melachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in front of the King of Kings. There's a great judgment day coming, and maybe when a person thinks about that, maybe it helps that person gain certain levels of spiritual awareness. He states it generally. It's an unusual form of teaching, an unusual form of writing. He says the three principles, and now he goes back and elaborates on each of them. He said, Da me'ayin bata, la'ata olech, lifnei mi ata atid litain din v'cheshbon. And now he has a comment on each one. Da me'ayin bata. Where does every human being come from? How did you arrive in this world? Who were you? Maybe a tiny microscopic cell. Where are you? Today you're the mighty. Today you're the mighty being. Were you always that way? He says here, you me'ayin bata mitipa serucha, from a tiny seminal, a tiny sperm cell. That's where you come from. Like, who are you? I've been at funerals where they quote this Mishnah, and I've seen two different customs. I respect both. There are some, they read this Mishnah, and then when they read this line, they read it in a lower voice. maybe because they think it's improper, or maybe they think it's not modest, or maybe they think So they say the whole paragraph out loud. They say this putrid drop of a tiny background to each person. Maybe the quiet voice is a reflection of modesty. I've seen both done. I understand both positions. I don't know which is more proper. I don't know if this was meant to be read in an undertone or in a quiet voice. It means who are you? What are you acting this way like? Don't you understand that you came from nothing? That your whole being is based on a background of nothingness. Well, I've quoted the teaching here at least once. I don't know. My children may think I'm crazy for saying this. Some of them are standing, but I was always wondering what is the scientific reason that when God created the world, it's off. It's not off. Maybe off. It was on. Okay.
Yes, some of the bottle in the picture.
The bottle. Beautiful.
From the beginning.
Beautiful.
I think it's a
this is what I would like to suggest. I hope it's okay to suggest this publicly. I think it's a true teaching. When the umbilical cord is severed from the mother, God could have arranged for the area of that incision, the area of that cut, to somehow heal in a direct way, with no remnant of the fact that there was ever any kind of attachment to the mother from the umbilical cord. What's the function? Is there a biological function? Is there a scientific function? I would like to suggest a spiritual function for a navel. Like, what do you learn from a belly button? What do you learn from a navel? I would like to suggest that maybe this is helping you all the time remember. Oh, you're so arrogant. You just fired, who knows how many people. You just made fun of, and then you're taking off your shirt. Oh, at one time I was like this helpless embryo. I was nothing. I was in my mother's womb. So how arrogant could you become, right? So me'ayin bata, maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu built into the human body a reminder forever, no matter how old or advanced or successful or powerful an individual is, somehow they're still, at least on some level, attached to their mother, and it helps them remember, me'ayin bata. Ula'ana taholech, where are you going? L'makom afar rima v'toleah. Where are you headed? Well, we hope that the words of Isaiah should be fulfilled tonight, and that death will only be something of the past. But in the past, everyone headed to the grave, to a place of dust and dirt and different types of worms and maggots. And so maybe in your pursuit of certain kinds of activities, you should realize that this is not going to be your future. And when you spend so much time, maybe indulge in the kinds of activities which are wrong to be indulged in, maybe you should think a little bit more about the future. La'ana taholech, l'makom afar. I think babies crying is music. So, we love babies. L'makom afar, rima v'toleah. And the striking conclusion of the Mishnah, v'lifnei mi ata atid litein din v'chashbon, and the ultimate reckoning, the ultimate accounting will be before the Supreme King. Lifnei Melech, Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A person can fool all the people all the time. A person can avoid any individual knowing about who they really are, but no one can avoid God knowing who they are. And Akavya's words are very moving and very striking, very, very powerful. It's probably difficult to think about his words all the time without some level of fear and awe, and maybe, God forbid, morbidity to some people. But I think as a general principle, it does help. It does help to reflect upon Akavya ben Mahalalel's teaching, to help a person gain new levels. Sometimes a person is overcome with passion, overcome with desire, overcome with an evil inclination, and they have no way of dealing with it. So maybe sometimes reflecting upon certain realities of the past, of the future, of the existence after the future, often can temper some of those passions. Just one final note of a teaching here about the din v'cheshbon. Din v'cheshbon. What's a din and what's a cheshbon? Depending on which translation you use, they more or less seem to mean the same thing. Din means some kind of judgment. Cheshbon means some kind of account. You have to give a din. You have to give a cheshbon. So I saw in the name of great rabbis, maybe most often quoted in the name of the Gaon of Vilna, and he said that ultimately on Judgment Day, a person will have to give both a din and a cheshbon. A din for that which they did improperly, for that which they violated, all of the sins, all of the transgressions, all of the violations, all of the hataim, and all of the avonot, and all of the bishamim. That's the din. What's cheshbon? Cheshbon, he said, I think the Gra said, well, at the time that a person was sinning, so now they reckon for all the sins. But what about all that time that you were sinning? All the time that person was sinning? They could have been doing so many good deeds. So there's a double reckoning for the negative behavior and the absence of all of the positive behavior that could have been done at the very time of all of that negative behavior. We pray that Akavya ben Mahalal's words, just studying that, should bring us to a perfected level of tikkun olam, and all human beings should be connected to God in the most direct and beautiful way. And the reflections of Akavya ben Mahalalel should help us improve both in our relationship with God as well as our relationship with other people. Thank you so much for listening, for leaving also. I guess you're going to leave right after I conclude. So I don't know if I should thank you for leaving, but thank you for listening. And shalom and bracha from Yerushalayim.